go. Hello. Happy Monday.
Hello,
Mark, how you
hello.
doing?
I'm good. Yourself?
I'm beat, man. I am beat. Oh my
Just,
god. Like,
just downright knackered, eh?
oh, I am. Like, I kid you not, I could, if I went to bed right now, I would probably fall right asleep. I am so
Yeah.
tired. I spent the day, so I have, I am, I haven't been in this position in quite a long while, which is Tuesday is my regular release day for videos. And up until about an hour ago, I didn't have a video ready for Tuesday. I just finished it. So all day, that's what I've been working on. And man, it's just drained me. Just
Yeah.
drained me. But that's not what we're here to talk about, is it?
It's not? I thought we were.
We're here to look at some photos. Let's say hello to everybody in the chat. Elaine, hello from Belgium. Lucky for me, I'm on holiday and can enjoy the show for a while. That's awesome. And
Nice. Yeah.
Tim just popped into the chat. So Mike says, "Hey Sandy, how's it going?" Mike is going to Windsor, Canada. So Mike, do you live near the border? Is it easy for you to just like hop over to go to Canada for some street photography? Or are you like taking a proper trip to Canada to do this? Because I know, if I recall correctly, you live up in Michigan somewheres in that neighborhood.
Yeah, Michigan's not too far, I don't think, from to Windsor.
Yeah. So hello to Harley and Mike and Wayne and Brenda and Dean's Jack and Coke, which I could maybe have one. I could probably do with something like that. And I know Diana, at least if she's not here now, she was definitely here earlier. And Brenda is here, and Amanda. Hello, everybody, and welcome. Happy Friday. Friday. Oh my God. See, I don't even know what damn day it is. Happy
Yeah.
Monday.
Yeah. It's not photo editing day.
It's not photo editing day. No, 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 no. Tim's having a beer. Yeah, I'd probably get really sleepy if I had a drink, Carly. You're absolutely right about that.
More
Ah,
sleepy than you already are.
right, which would be like, I'd be sitting here snoozing, and Mark, you'd just have to run everything.
Yeah. Until my internet's crapped out on me,
Right.
then would be totally screwed.
Ooh, Tim's having a beer. All right. Hey, George just joined. How you doing, George? Good to see you, bud. Should we look at some photos?
Sure.
Okay, we're gonna actually start with your photo now. To prep y'all, this is a
Y'all.
photo. This is a photo of a wall.
Yeah.
But
Yes. Well, one of my best shots ever.
all right, let's take a look at this photo. And Mark, you can tell us why you shared this one with us. Let me see if I can actually make this thing switch. There we go.
Well, I'm just waiting for it to show up on the screen.
Hello, hello, Sonia from Miami, and Diana is here. Hello, Diana. Hi, you guys. All
Hey, it's
right,
on the screen.
it's on the
Okay, so
screen.
it's on the screen. So, but my main purpose of sharing this is basically just help encourage you, or I guess anybody, if you have a print that you like, a photo that you've taken that you really like, I think printing it out and putting it on display for people to see, whether it's for you guys to enjoy yourself, or whether or when guests come over, or whatever the case is, like, you should definitely consider printing, because it's your top notch photos just sitting on your computer aren't doing anybody any good. So the picture that you see there in the blue, that's one that I took there probably about a month ago, and I think I've shown that picture during one of the streams. But I had it printed out. The print size is about 24 by 36, and then apparently you don't see or hear me.
What happened to Mark? Okay, sorry guys. I did all of this too. Let me refix Mark in here.
Oh,
Replace
okay. They can hear me.
man.
They just can't see me. Okay.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, I see what happened. Sorry, guys. Give me a half a second here. I accidentally made Mark super tiny.
Yeah.
There he
Hate
is.
it when that happens.
Yeah.
I was that little squish thing in the middle
Oh,
there.
for the love of God, this stupid computer. I want to punch it in the face right about now. Like, seriously, what is happening here?
If a computer had a face.
Oh my God, right? Okay, this is not that complicated. Make mark big, make mark go on the screen. There you go, computer. You can do it. I'm very proud of you. Okay. All right, y'all should be able to see Mark now. Sorry about
Hey, here
that.
I am! Yay!
It's teeny. Yeah, it was teeny tiny Mark.
Yeah,
Awesome. All fixed now. Okay.
yeah.
See
There you go.
photo. All right.
Yeah.
So yeah, print your photos.
Yeah, print your
That's the
photos,
message, right?
and you don't necessarily even have to print them out that big. Like this one was one I was quite happy with, and I decided just to go for it and print it out because I actually had another picture on in the same spot, but it wasn't one of my pictures. It was a picture that I had I had won there quite a few years ago, and it was a print of a painting, so it was something that we had there, but it was starting to get faded, and figured it was time to replace it. So this is what we went with, and we're very happy with it. And like I said, definitely encourage anybody who has something that they're proud of to print it out, get it framed, and hang it on the wall to show off to everybody.
Absolutely, yeah. The power of print, right?
Yep,
You should
absolutely.
print your work.
And
Sonia,
having something physical in your hands it's it just gives you a a finished feeling versus you have it, you get on, you edit it, you have it there. It's just not quite the same as actually holding a physical print.
yep, absolutely. I agree with that. Classic Mama, hello. She says, shh, listening at work.
Oh, naughty, naughty.
Yeah. Sonia says, I started printing, but what I see on the computer and iPad don't look the same when you print. This is a common issue that people run into, Sonia. And before we move on to any of the other photos, I actually want to talk about this real quick because there's two things that are going to be happening here. And this is sometimes a little bit difficult to deal with, but the first thing is that your computer and your iPad or whatever computing device you're using is a backlit illuminated screen of some sort. So it's actually a light source. And that is an immediate problem. And that is actually the reason that I always recommend when a person is editing a photo, particularly when you're preparing it for print, that you should have your brightness on your monitor, screen, whatever it is, set to 50% at the brightest. Because when you edit a photo with your monitor brightness at 100%, it looks artificially brighter than it really is because the screen is emitting all of this light. So that's issue number one. Issue number two is probably colors, and getting like perfect match colors is
Can be tricky.
can be tricky is a colossal understatement. Working in what would be called a color managed workflow is a giant pain in the ass, to be perfectly honest with you. There are so many variables you have to consider. Number one is the calibration of the screen itself, right? So if you're working on an iPad, you actually can't calibrate an iPad. However,
Don't iPads, or I guess really any of the tablets, really boomify the colors too to make them look more artificially rich?
I think some of the Android phones are guilty of that. I don't think the iOS and the Apple devices are, because they have always kind of prided themselves. That's why I'm comfortable using an iPad, because the calibration of those screens are usually like really good.
Right.
But that being said, there's still going to be variation, right? Like I've got an iPad and then I've got a computer, a desktop, and if I look at a picture on both of those side by side, they're not going to be identical because they're different screens and there's going to be a variation there. And then when you send that image off to print, the printer is going to have its own color profile and interpret the colors in a whole different way. I went down this rabbit hole years ago when I was first getting into printing my own work, and I was like, I want my colors to be accurate. I want all of this stuff to be accurate, blah, 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 blah. And then I very quickly went, this is a bunch of fucking bullshit. Fuck that. I don't care. I don't give a crap. And it's not that I don't give a crap. I do give a crap about my colors. But what I recommend you do is pick your device that you're going to be doing your print preparation on, right? So one device that you always do your print preparation on, computer, iPad, whatever. And then work with your printer. And when I say work with your printer, I'm talking about like the print service, but if you're actually printing on a piece of paper with a printer that you own, this is a whole process that you have to kind of go through yourself, which is getting color profiles that you can install on your computer, choosing the correct paper, using the profile for that paper, making sure the printer is using the correct profile. All of those things are meant to interpret the colors as perfectly as possible. And if you're going to be working with a third-party printer, then most of them are going to be good enough, should be good enough if it's as long as it's not like a sort of Walmart online service. Any print service worth its salt will have profiles available for you, and if they have a real customer service line, you should be able to call them up and get some help working with those profiles and whatnot, to get them installed and be using them properly on your monitor. But in the end, this is what I decided to do with mine. And each person has to decide how they want to handle your own. Mark, you can share how you handle your color as soon as I talk about mine. But basically, I did and have done this. I have a trusted printer that I use. It's iprintfromhome.com. I really love them. They're great people. I've always worked with them. I've worked with them for a long ass time. They're not a sponsor of any kind. I found them one day ages ago and have been very happy with the service they offer. But when I was looking for a printer, I created a sample set of photos that I wanted to print. I went to I found several different print services that I wanted to test, and I ordered prints from them. And I made note of like all of the different settings options going through their print selection process so that I knew what I had done, and then looked at everything when I got it back and decided which ones I liked the most, which ones were truest in color to what I was working with, and then boom, that's my printer and that's what I use. Color management is a pain in the ass. Mark, how do you handle that?
Yeah, pretty much. Up to 13 by 19, I print here at home. Um, but basically, my monitor's calibrated, and for the most part, when I print something out, it comes out as I expect it. The odd time it does come out dark because of, as you mentioned, about the backlit screen. Sometimes it's a hard hurdle to get over, even if you are used to it. But at least doing it at home, if I print it out and it's wrong, I can reprint it and like adjust and reprint. Versus if I send it out, if when I do send stuff out, because I know my colors and everything come out accurately because I've tested on my own, I make sure when I send it out to a printer that they don't do any color correction. That way, it's just minimizes the chances of things being slightly off. But there's always going to be an exception. Like I think if you're using a more commercial, like not necessarily commercial, more of a public printing service, like
Consumer level might be a good way to describe it,
right, like
like a
Sandy, I mentioned.
Shutterfly or
Right,
something.
right. I think Sandy mentioned MPix. I think. I think if you're using something like that, you're more apt to get variation because they might not spend as much time keeping their printers calibrated.
I'd actually put MPix in the category of a professional print service. I agree with what you're saying, but I wouldn't. I don't agree with your categories.
Okay, no, that's fine.
Yeah,
I've never used them, so I've
right,
just
right.
yeah. So either way, so doesn't MPix have like a regular MPix and an MPix Pro?
I'm not sure about that, but I know that generally speaking, MPix does a really good job as well.
Okay, so maybe we'll use Walmart then as a better
Yeah, or
example.
Shutterfly.
Yeah. But basically, I think one of the ones who have a lot of high volume and high turnaround are probably less apt to keep their machines up to date and calibrated versus a more professional level printer. So that's sort of how I do things. So
Yep, yep. Yeah, so Sandy says MPix looked exactly like the photo on my Mac screen. I did not have them color correct my print, so that's all I use now. That's another key. When I send my photos out to print, I choose to not have them color corrected as well, and that yields me more accurate results. So again, it's something that you have to work through. It's something that's worth testing and checking to get to a printer that you can work with, that you trust, that will give you colors that you are happy with.
Yeah, I think another point too is a lot of it will depend on what you're doing. Like not to say what you're doing would make a difference or not, because but if you're doing a lot of stuff like with colored gels and that, then perhaps if the colors are slightly off, it might not even be so noticeable. Whereas if you're doing, I think it was Mike had mentioned he's doing product photography. When you're doing something
Yes.
like that, that has to be as damn accurate as you can get it.
Yeah.
and even like if you're a wedding photographer and people are buying prints from that, they've got to be pretty damn close too, because you deliver prints where the person's skin's all jaundiced looking. It's like
Uh,
you're going to be reprinting in a big hurry. But
yep.
even landscape stuff, I think if your landscape stuff is off a little bit, you'd probably never notice, because your blue sky could be a slightly different shade of blue and nobody would notice, or a sunset with like that sort of thing. So like I said, I think a lot of it has to do with what you're printing and how concerned you are about it being bang on accurate or not.
Yep. Yep. That's exactly right. Okay, let's actually do some looking at some photos. Actually, real quick, we should catch up on the chat. Sorry about that. Diana says, I got a photo printer for my birthday from my spouse, and I was wondering how I know how large I can actually print my photo. Diana, if you want to drop into the chat the model number for that, we can look that up real quick and tell you what size is your limit. So do that, and we'll try to help figure that out.
Mm-hmm.
Amanda says, that's why my photos look darker on my phone than my laptop. Exactly. Your phone screen is probably a legitimately dimmer screen. It cannot get as bright as your laptop can.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Elaine says, I just changed one photo. Let's see. Elaine says, I started to print my photos. Each season, I want to change the pictures depending on the season. That's awesome. I love that idea.
Yeah, that's great.
And then I just said, and then he says, I just changed one photo after your very fine critique last time, the photo of the lock in the river. Oh, awesome. Awesome.
Nice.
I love that photo. I love that
Mm-hmm.
photo. And Elaine also says, I have two printers and I have to use the Canon Easy Print app in order to have the best results. Printing in Lightroom sometimes generates small lines, but in the app. Yeah, I don't like printing out of Lightroom. I know you can.
I print direct from Lightroom, and I've
Do
never had
you?
any issues. No.
No, I hate it. I mean, to be fair,
It,
I don't
it, it
print.
is it is convoluted. I'll admit that,
Right.
but once you kind of get it set up and working, then it works fine.
Sandy says every device I have, my pics look totally different. So annoying. Yeah, yeah. That's a major pain. That's the thing that you have to realize is that everybody's screens are going to be different, and we don't even really know how other people see color.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we all agree that red is red, right? But what I see as red,
Might not be what I see as
yeah,
red.
who the fuck knows, right? I mean, colorblind people legitimately, not legitimate isn't the right word, but colorblind people actually, have different photoreceptors in their eyes, so they, in a measurable way, see color differently than
Right.
than all of the other human beings that have the regular same color photoreceptors. But I mean, our brains are so different and so unique, and all of this. There's so many different variables. And like Harley just said, do you really exist, or are you a figment of my imagination? Right? Like, I so right now want to be able to snap my fingers and just have me disappear from the screen. You like poof.
Well, that's easy to do. You just hit the disconnect button.
Right, exactly, yeah. But that's part of the reason I don't get so worked up about color. And again, like, I totally understand when you have to be accurate. like Mike with product photography, that is a very key. With skin tones, with people, all of those things are super important. But I have the benefit, or I'm in a position where I can be loosey goosey about it because I'm doing creative work where the color is in part an artistic interpretation of what we're doing.
Yeah.
All right, so let's look at some photos here, right? We should probably do that.
That's kind of why we're here, I think, isn't
That
it?
is kind of why we're here. Yeah. So I had a photo that I was going to share, but we've been talking so much that I think we should just look at everybody else's photos. So if we get to mine towards the end, sweet. If not, whatever. I don't give a crap.
If not, sweet, right?
Yeah. Well, all right. So this is Elaine's, and Elaine actually uploaded 2 photos, which does not break the rules, only because he was asking for our opinion on the crop. So we're looking at this to compare the 2. So the first one is the tighter crop, and the second one, is the pulled back crop. And ooh, that's a cute puppy. And I gotta tell you, I don't know. What do you think, Mark?
You didn't put it on the screen yet, did you?
Oh God, I'm sitting here bouncing around in between it, and you guys can't even see it. You guys, can you not tell how out of it I am today? I told you I was tired. Oh, and it looks like, oh my God, my whole world's falling apart here. The iPad isn't working. What is going on here today? Oh my God, I gotta crawl under the desk. Give me a minute. I'll be right back. This is gonna be fun. This is gonna be
live.
Oh my God, tonight this is clearly a shit show. All right, here I go, climbing under the desk to look at the connections.
Yeah, Harley, it's not flickering. It's not even on. Did you find my $20?
I can sort of hear you talking, Mark. Ow, bump my head again. Can't see the cord. There we go. I'm back.
Did you find my $20 under there?
Right? Why is this not working? Oh my God, this is so annoying. So annoying.
It was working earlier.
Okay, let me try this with something else. I'll be back again. These are not this is not the show you were looking for, is it? It's a show, but
it's not the droids either we're looking for.
Yeah, it's a bit of a mess, isn't it? There's always something going wrong somewhere. I found a new hobby, magician. Yeah, it was working great on the Friday show. Man, come on. Oh, look, success of a sort, I think, maybe.
Success-ish.
Yeah, let me try this. Hey, there we go. All right. Well, that was a fun little adventure, wasn't it?
Well, that's entertaining. We'll give you that.
Hold on, I can't hear anything you're saying. Coach East loves this. Okay, now all that climbing around. Also, you know what? It gets so freaking hot in here because it's a recording studio. And recording studios, by their nature, are just stupid hot. So I'm like,
because of all the damn equipment.
Right, like the heat, and then I've got these stupid lights on, and they're just like.
Oh, I was going to ask you about that. What are you using LED lights for that?
I am using LED lights.
Just little ass ones or big ass ones?
Medium ass ones, like this size. So that's my head. That's the LED light. My head looks freaking huge compared to this light. Doesn't it? But this is the size. It's like,
Oh,
um,
2 of them?
yeah, I have 2 of them up there. So
Were they cheap?
twice this. I can show you which ones I got. Let me go to the Zons of Amma, because that's where I got it from.
Now that we're completely off topic.
Yeah, now that we're completely off topic, we're just like totally off the rails tonight.
Going up the rails on a crazy train.
Yeah. Going off the rails. We're gonna get a copyright strike now.
Yeah. Because you're such a good singer.
Yeah, because I'm such an amazing singer. Funny show. You're worth it. We'll wait. Thank you, Sonia. All right, this is the one that I'm using. So it's a $34 light. I have 2 of them because I'm a glutton for punishment, and I don't want to crank my ISO up too crazy high. My ISO actually for this on this camera right now, God, what do I even have it at? It's at 1600, which is fine.
Oh, that's not bad.
No, it's not bad.
And the reason for me asking because I'm thinking within the next month I might be moving where I do the Blab stuff, but where I'm moving it to, the lighting probably isn't that great. So I'm just trying to figure out some options for lighting it without going too crazy. That's all.
Right. All right.
Okay, let's get back on topic.
Let's get back on topic. It's only half an hour into the show.
And we haven't looked at anything yet.
Yeah. Menopause, right? Yeah, that. And I'm dealing with menopause. Why not? Let's pile it on. Okay, so at least it's not flickering. Yeah, it's not flickering because it wasn't on at all.
Yeah.
Well, see, here's the deal. That's why I was using this other cord, because it's just a straight HDMI cord. What I was using before, what I'm using now is this HyperDock thing I got, which is really nice because it's got like HDMI and like 5,000 other ports, so I can plug, the entire world into my iPad. But it seems like the connection is just a little bit loosey-goosey enough that it's flickery. So it's like, okay, I'm going to take and get this cord here, which just is Lightning, and then has a little doobly-doo dongle D on it for plugging power into, so the iPad isn't dead by the end of the show, because it would be otherwise. And it was working perfectly yesterday. It was working perfectly Friday when I streamed, and it was working perfectly earlier, and then it shit the bed. So, all right. So anyway, Elaine's photo here was taken in Belgium. It's not only the crop, but it's another shot. It's not only the crop, but it's another shot. But same tripod place and lens, different focus. Okay. It is a beautiful shot. So now that we can all see it, that's the puppers. The puppers is super cute, but we're still looking at Elaine's photo here. I'm pulling myself. I feel like the second one, the crop, I feel like the crop is the one that I'm in for. What do you think, Mark?
It's the crop. But you keep switching. I'm not sure which one you're counting as the crop.
This one right here that's currently up that I'm not going to change for the next, I don't know, however long. The tighter shot, the one that doesn't show the water.
Okay. So yeah, I'm the complete opposite. I like the one with the water.
I like them both. I'm not saying I don't like the other one, but of the two, I prefer the crop better. So I'll explain why I like the crop better. Then you can explain why you like the water one better, and then we can flip a coin for everybody else and see what everybody says. So yeah, everybody else in the chat, tell us what you like. So the reason I'm drawn to the crop is because in looking at the wider shot, I see the water, and the water's intriguing, but what's really capturing and drawing my attention is the sky and that sunset. It is the brightest part of the shot, and also with this wider shot, those 2 trees that are coming up on kind of that left third kind of break that sky in a way that takes me away from it. And then I get lost in this shadow loop, but the shadow loop to me isn't as engaging because it's really dark and shadowy. It's a silhouette, and silhouettes are fine. I'm not saying silhouettes are bad, but to me, because you're pulled back, the shadows, the silhouettes, and the trees end up being so heavy and pulling so much attention away from what feels to me like the subject, which is this sunset and everything. And then if you go back to this, the trees and the silhouettes become a framing device. And now you have this big, beautiful slice of sky in the center there that's in this kind of interesting shape because it's like you're peering through this gap here. And because we're tighter, the brightness of the sky balances out against the darkness of the silhouettes better. I also like the amount of detail that I can see in the grass and the bit of fog that it feels like is hanging over there, and the way it kind of winds in from that corner and zigzags through the shot. So that's why I'm leaning towards this tighter crop versus the wider shot. So that's my thought. Mark, why do you prefer the wider shot?
I totally see exactly what you're talking about with the tighter shot, and I totally get it because the trees and the silhouette and everything does look cool. But myself, I'm just a sucker for water, and I like to see it there because to me it just adds a little bit more to it. But I can totally understand where you're coming from. But I'm wondering with this, if it was a 4-3 crop to basically keep the top and then lose a little bit of the water, and then you still got some of the water. I think somebody else in the chat also mentioned that as well too. So
like this-ish kind of. I know it's going to take a second for it to show up to you, so I'm just going to wait.
Stupid internet.
Right.
Yeah, something like that.
That works a little bit better for me because it does give the sky a bit more prominence.
Yeah, see, I think I like the water just because it just adds more color as well too. Because you are kind of getting the reflections of the sky in the water as well too. And like you said, it's not like the other one is horrific. It's a great shot.
They're both, yeah.
Like if you had only presented me with the tight shot and didn't say there were two options, I would have said that the tight shot was a great shot, and it 100% and truly is. But now that you added the option of one or the other, I think the one with the water is my preference. But maybe like I said, a 4-3 crop just to get rid of some of that water, but keep the rest of it in the frame.
Yeah. Yeah, it looks like I'm being overruled. Not that I care, because obviously this is just...
because you're right and it's your show. So.
Yeah, right, yeah. But let's see. I like Diana's solution, which is print both. One for the bathroom and another one for the living room.
Yeah, there you go.
Sandy likes the water. Harley says more color and interest. I think he means the water as well. Vicky, hey Vicky, how you doing? Vicky agrees with Mark. Hey Alex, how you doing as well? Alex says the reflection is cool, water. So Vicky likes the kind of the in-between crop that you suggested as well. Yeah. Flavio also likes the water, and the S line between the water and the tree kind of creates two photos. Yeah, I mean, the water's got a lot going on for it. Whoops, I'm still going in the wrong direction. I see what you're talking about with the S. They're both really good shots. I think
definitely.
I still lean towards the crop. I still lean towards the tight crop. I think I would enjoy the water a little bit more if it was a medium crop. They're both really excellent, but that's where I land on the tighter crop. And I like Diana's solution of just printing them both.
Yeah.
All right. Problem solved, right? That's if we're nothing if not problem solvers here.
Yeah, exactly.
All
or
right.
More problems, one of the two.
Yeah. Okay. So here is a super cute little photo. Sorry, I've got hairs, cat hair.
That's what happens when you crawl around under the desk.
No, it's the cats got into the studio earlier, and it's like a hair bomb just went off in here. It's like it's driving me crazy because I try to keep them out because A, I don't want hair all over my stuff, like my clothes for when I'm doing this, and B, I prefer to keep the hair away from my equipment because it's just better for the equipment in the long run. But obviously, occasionally the cats sneak in here. Yeah, and it's like they extra shed when they get in here. Like, oh my god, I gotta get some hair in here.
Yeah.
Okay, this is Diana's daughter. She is adorable.
She's a cutie.
She's a super cutie, and I've got the notes from your settings, Diana, which are f5 1/500th and ISO 7200. Oh, and I never actually even gave Elaine's data for the photo. Sorry, but I think we're past it now. All right.
But we were judging based off of which one we like better, not the settings.
Yeah, yeah. All right, go ahead, Mark.
Okay, it's definitely a super cute photo. The one thing that I want to say stands out, but it does sort of stand out, but not horrifically bad stands out. But the fact that the focus is missed on the eyes, unfortunately, because you can see like the hair on the side of her head is just tack sharp, but then the hair on her forehead and all the way down the front of her face is just missed the focus, unfortunately. But
Yep.
it's one of those cases where I think unless you were looking for it, you probably wouldn't notice it. And as because of what we do here, this is the sort of stuff that we're looking for. But I think if you printed this out, I wouldn't print something like this out too large because of that. But if you print it out like an 8x10 or something like that, I don't think anybody would ever notice or comment on it. But it's definitely a super cute photo. I can understand the focus being off because kids are just always go, go, go. So it's unless you have one of the brand new super high end cameras that have eye tracking, and even then, it's odds are it can miss, especially with a kid that's just running around like a holy terror. I'm not saying that your daughter's a holy terror, but you know what I mean. But it's definitely a cute, nicely captured moment. I love her hand on her face. Another thing is you could have backed up a little bit more just because you got the elbow cut off, but it's definitely not a deal breaker by any stretch of the imagination because you got her face there, which is really the key of this photo. Is just the look on her face, that smile, and you just know you could just almost see mischief in her eyes.
Oh God, yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking. I love that. I love the way I love her smirk, smile. Like, I don't know if she was up to mischief, but it sure as hell looks like she was, and I think it's super adorable.
Yeah.
It's funny because Harley put this in the chat, and I totally agree with this. It says emotion. Harley says emotion overrides technical, and that's so right.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because I didn't even notice that it was off until you were talking about the focus because I was just looking at her face and how adorable that expression is. But as soon as you said it and I pulled back and started looking at it a little bit less emotionally, I could see that the focus was missed a little bit, like you pointed out. And it happens sometimes, you know.
Absolutely.
This is a case where I'm not sure how your focus settings were, Diana. But if you're using the default focus settings of the camera, where it just chooses the focus points, it appears to be at random. But the camera's trying to decide what the subject should be and where the focus should be. It's trying to do it intelligently, but it's a stupid computer which does stupid things. And so what may have happened here is if that's how your camera was choosing focus, it may have caught the contrast between the hair being lit and the background and chose that as an ideal place to focus, even though in a perfect world her eyes would be in focus. If you're not choosing your focus point, I'd recommend doing so. It's not that difficult to do. It does vary slightly depending upon the camera that you have, but basically, instead of using the entire grid, you choose a particular focus point, and then when you're focusing, you put that where you want your focus to be, on the eyes of your daughter in this particular case. And that tells the camera, only focus here. Don't try to focus anywhere else. And provided everything else works properly, you'll get your focus exactly where you want it. But yeah, that's the only thing I see as well. And this is super cute, and she's adorable, and you should definitely be proud because she's
super cute.
she's adorbs. All right, this is a pretty cool shot. This here is, I believe, Amanda's shot, if I recall correctly. I took my photo in manual mode on a Rebel T6, shutter speed of 400. Everything else is auto. It's the truck photo that for some reason I uploaded twice. Yeah, I'm pretty sure this is the shot. And this is also a pretty awesome photo. Mark, I'll let you start. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
from this past weekend.
right. Okay. Yeah, this is great because you picked the perfect shutter speed for this because you froze the
Truck.
whatever what truck we'll call it, yeah, whatever you all call it thing. That you basically you froze a truck, but you still got the motion showing in the wheels and it's spinning up the dirt and everything. I think it's perfectly well executed in that respect. I like the framing of it. But I wish there was just a little bit more at the bottom of the frame, but it's really minimal. And again, it's
Um,
similar.
Here,
Similar. Oh,
it was pulled in a little bit. I apologize. That was how it was showing on screen.
oh, okay, okay. But yeah, it's cool. I like it. It's pretty decently exposed. Unfortunately, the person driving, you can't really see them, but when it's bright and sunny out and they're in the shade of the cab, that's going to happen. There's just only so much you can do with that amount of light because it looks like it was just pounding the sun down. So
Yep.
there's huge exposure differences there, and you really not much you could do about that realistically without really pushing the limits of your editing. And even then, it probably end up standing out like a sore thumb. So kudos for that. So generally, it's a great photo. I like it. I said, did you say what the shutter speed was?
400, 1/400th.
1/400. Okay, yeah. So I definitely think that was an excellent choice for this.
Yeah, I absolutely agree that shutter speed is a perfect balance of what we were talking about the last time, which is freezing the motion of the subject but capturing a little bit of the motion in the wheels. I love the action and the activity you've caught in this. I love that you've got the truck principally over on the right side of the frame and you've given it headroom. So we're following the truck through the shot and there's enough headroom in the shot going off into the left of the frame that it doesn't feel too crowded and it feels like it has room to move through. One of my favorite things about this is like if you look over here on the left-ish side, just outside of the roll cage bar, you can see the spray of mud and,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
dirt and whatnot in the air. And the same thing back here by the rear wheels. Those little bits of dirt and mud that are flying everywhere add so much to this shot. It's a subtle thing. Obviously, it's not a thing that you can, put in or take out. It just happens because the dirt's being kicked up. But the fact that you capture it and it's there and it's part of the shot, it adds a ton of detail to this and energy that I really, really like and really enjoy. Whoops. One of the things that you could do, you don't have to, but you could do if you want to. And Amanda, are you capturing these in RAW or just as straight JPEGs? I can't remember if we asked about this last time or not. Because if you're capturing in RAW, it's going to give you more latitude in the edit when you sit down in Lightroom or whatever RAW editor you happen to be using.
JPEG.
Okay, JPEG. If you shot this in RAW, there's two things that you could do. One would be what Mark was talking about, which is because of the light, because of the sun, because of everything else, the cab is really dark. If this was in RAW, you could pull the shadows up and you could get some detail in that cab and you could see, at some of the driver in there, which would help make this an even better photo. And you could also, if you wanted to, you don't have to do this, but there's a ton of dirt clouding the air in the background. It's very hazy. And that actually makes for a nice clean background. But if you wanted to show more of the context, you could try that dehaze slider that Lightroom has, if you're using Lightroom, to see about cleaning that up a bit. And again, those are just options.
Mm-hmm.
It's already, like I said, it's already a really excellent shot. And I really enjoy it. Very nice work, Diana. Or I mean,
Yeah,
Amanda.
yeah.
Sorry, I'm still thinking about the daughter. She's super
Yeah.
gross.
Yeah. Hey,
Very nice
Steve.
work, Amanda. Yeah, raw legs out your camera, which I totally understand. And if you can't because of the pace of the action, I totally respect that.
Yep.
Absolutely, totally
Yep.
respect that.
Definitely.
Yeah, in the future, whenever you end up ready to upgrade to a camera, one of the things you'll want to look at is the raw burst capabilities of the camera, because you can get cameras that have the throughput to handle RAW without that lag that you're experiencing with the T6. But if a camera isn't sort of optimized for that, it's not going to burst RAW very well because that's a ton of data that it has to move around very quickly. All right, this is Brenda's. We got another car shot here, which is pretty awesome. Brenda says, hot rod OTR. My husband and I were sitting on our porch swing when we heard this hot rod coming down the road. I had my camera beside me, which is awesome. Very, very awesome. I had my camera beside me and quickly snapped 3 photos. This was the Nikon D3500 with the 18 to 55 millimeter lens, f10, 1/100th of a second, and ISO 100.
So what did you say the shutter speed was?
1/100th of a second.
Okay. Cool. I like how you attempted to do the panning, because we talked about that. It was the last show, I think it was. We talked about panning techniques, and
Yes.
that was one thing I commented on that I've tried to do, and I can't do worth a crap. So
It's tricky.
yeah. So keep that in mind when I'm making some comments here, because I know I suck at it. So it can definitely be difficult to do, and you definitely have done one hell of a top-notch job trying to get it. But it looks like you were close, but not quite close enough, because you got the background nicely blurred like you'd expect to see, and the road blurred, and the car is mostly not blurred, but it's definitely not perfect. That's just sort of unfortunately what happens when you're trying to do stuff like this. And this is probably, like I said, this is probably better results than I would have got. So so you can tell me to go screw myself. I don't care. But I do like how you got it framed. It's perfectly framed. It's very similar to the one we looked at before, where you see where the car is heading to, versus if it had been the other way around and the front of the car was at the edge of the frame, it would just lose so much. So you definitely got that done well, and is most definitely a great attempt at capturing while panning.
Yeah. Panning, as we've already established, pain in the ass, very difficult to do. Sandy says maybe panning should be one of the next challenges. I think that's a really good idea. We should absolutely do that as one of the challenges. Maybe I'll even arbitrarily be like, we're doing panning. We'll see. Anyway, yeah, panning's really tough. Hard to do well. Brenda says this was a quick pick up the camera. There wasn't time to change the settings, which totally makes sense when you've got a car that's coming down the road and you're just jumping on the opportunity.
Yeah,
So,
well, I think the shutter speed is a good choice, though.
Yes.
It does look like it worked well, and it actually kind of surprises me that the car isn't more sharp than I would have expected. So, but either way, I think it was definitely a good place to be starting at, for sure. Definitely a good kick at the can.
Yeah, I think it's really well done. You know, the thing that breaks you the most is the fact that the guy is a little bit blurred, and obviously he's going to be blurred. He's in the car. Everything that is blurred is going to be blurred. So just, more panning practice, if it's a thing that you want to be able to do on the regular, is definitely in order. But outside of that, this is a super fun shot. I really dig it because it's got so much energy to it, because of the pan, because you can see the wheels turning, because of the drag of the world around. Like, it's really well done. Nice job, Brenda.
Yep.
Okay, this is Wayne's. Let me find Wayne's info here. Looks like we're on track now. I say that, I probably cursed us. Here we go.
Yeah.
Wayne's shot says this was taken with a Canon Allegria HF G25 camcorder. Interesting. So this is a camcorder shot.
Oh, that's cool.
And that's kind of fun because just like, our photo cameras can record video, you have video cameras that can take photos. So the only info I have is it's f4 and 1/120th of a second, and then edited with Luminar 3. So Wayne also just put into the chat, please let me know what you think of my edit. Is it over the top? Maybe I need to tune it down. Please be honest and frank. Thank you. All right, Mark, I'll let you start.
Well, I definitely don't think it's over the top. Like I can see a little bit of haloing around the trees, but it's very minimal, and it's really only because I'm looking for it. If I wasn't looking for it, I probably wouldn't notice it. I think it's a well exposed image. The skies has good detail in it. Well, basically everything has good detail, and sometimes with shots like this, you can end up with issues where the sky is blowing out, where your foreground is exposed properly. Just kind of depends on where the sun is and how, if things are playing nice or not. But you definitely got a good balance. I think for me the only negative thing I would say is to me the scene is just too busy for my liking. There's just like all these signs and all these people. Like I know the people and everything sort of add to the scene because it's you're in a public area and you're going to see that sort of stuff. But myself, I like to see it. I'd like to see something like this less cluttered. But again, there's nothing you can do about that because the people are there.
Right, right.
Yeah.
It's interesting. Let's see. Dean says a bit too much foreground for his taste. Um, I like the foreground. I also am okay with the busyness of this shot. I think because it is the nature of the shot, right? Like to me, it's saying this is a sort of hubbub of activity. So I'm going to pull away from that for a second, though, and just talk about the edit. So as far as the edit goes, I also do not think that it's too much. I think the green is nice and vibrant without being like eye searing. I like the colors in the sky. The one thing I am noticing, if you look at the sky, there's some magenta huing going on in the sky, and that's something you might want to try to clean up. I think some of the fringing that you're seeing, Mark, is more an issue of chromatic aberration than it is of the edit.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering too. It's hard to
Yeah,
tell.
yeah, and so I think I have Luminar 3, but I actually like I don't use it. So I don't know what their chromatic aberration tools are like, but it's definitely worth taking a crack at this to remove that chromatic aberration. That may also clean up that magenta that you're seeing in the clouds in the sky. Because like if you look, as an example, if you look along the roof line here, you can see along the peaks of the roof, the reefs, the roofs, the roofses, you can see the yellow-green fringing. And then if you're
Hmm.
looking on the verticals of the building here and the windows and stuff, you can see the magenta-ish purpley fringing that's happening. So I'm pretty sure that's what's going on here rather than color artifacting from overzealous editing. So that's that. As far as the edit goes, and I love the lush, vibrant green, to be perfectly honest. And I actually quite like the foreground because to me, the sort of serenity of that slice of grass and that slice of sky balances out all of the busyness that's going on in the middle of this shot. And it provides for me an interesting story because it feels like a serene little spot, but then there's all of this activity happening, like I mentioned before. I do agree that that red sign is like boom, like really attention grabbing, as is that red car.
Right.
And, you know, when you're shooting something like this, right, like aside of photoshopping stuff like that out, obviously you can't take that red thing down, whatever it is. Obviously you're not, I mean, you could go ask those people to move their car, but they'd probably be like, you know, bug off, what the hell's your problem, or
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah,
You know, so and I don't know that. I mean, I guess you could come in on a tighter crop, something like this ish. Again, I'm just like sort of zoom cropping, and that takes out the car. And with that red at that sort of corner of the bridge, I think it becomes a nice anchor point because for me, I kind of zigzag through this shot. You have this line in the grass that sort of follows the edge of the water. You have the bridge that kind of comes back, and then you have that red thing, and then you have the red car, and then you have the buildings that kind of point you up into the sky, and then the sky kind of arches over. So I find it actually a really pleasing composition despite all of the busyness that's in there. Um, so I think you could go either way with it.
yeah.
I
I think
Go
I
ahead.
think looking at it further, I think, and reading some of the comments, I think what it is for me is it's not so much the fact that it's busy, but I think it's the fact that, like you had said, the green at the front, there's nothing going on there, and then it's busy at the back.
Mm-hmm.
But then as soon as you kind of cropped in,
Mm-hmm.
so there wasn't as much grass, then the busyness didn't bother me as much.
Mm-hmm.
So
Okay.
I think when it was zoomed out, it was just sort of throwing me off because it's nice and quiet and at the front here, and then at the back, all of a sudden, there's all these people. There's the cars and the signs and everything. But when you're zoomed a little bit tighter, then the busyness looks more like it belongs because you're not as distracted by all the emptiness at the front of it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, the more I look at this slightly tighter crop that I just sort of again zoomed in with you know, in the viewer with that car removed, the more I kind of like it like that. I like it pulled out, but I think this makes it a little bit stronger.
I
Then
think so too.
the bridge becomes a real strong focal point, and that zigzag for me actually becomes a little bit stronger.
Yeah, and because the bridge is more of the focal point, then having the people on the bridge makes more sense then.
Yeah, yep, I do agree. I do agree. All right. Wayne says, thank you, everyone. Comments are all noted. Excellent. Oh, yeah, that's a thing you could do if you wanted to. Harley just mentioned that you could just pull the reds down a little bit with the saturation to tone down how attention grabbing that particular color is. You have to be careful when doing it so that it doesn't look too desaturated, but that's a thing you can do to sort of de-emphasize it just a hair.
Yeah.
Yeah. Either way, though, it's very nice work. Yeah, it's very nice work, Wayne.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's see here. Let me find the information here. This is Flavio's shot. And Flavio says this was shutter speed of 1/750th of a second, f8 and ISO 640. Landscape in Spain of a morning cloudy sunrise near Laguna where there is an initial fog due to the different temperature between the air and the ground. It was far, but I had my Nikon 200 to 500, and that got me close to find this composition. All right, go ahead, Mark.
I think it's an excellent choice for a composition. This is definitely a lovely photo. How you've captured everything. The one thing you probably didn't have one at the time, or maybe you don't have one. I'm not sure, but this would be a good reason to have a tripod, so you can basically bring your ISO down and not have to worry about shooting at the higher ISO to get the sharp shot while hand holding. But either way, you made it work, and you don't see any noise in here, so it doesn't really make that much of a difference. But I love the shot. I love the editing too. Like, it's almost kind of a surreal edit, and I really like how it looks. The only thing that you might want to consider doing is, like, in the background, right at the horizon, you see, like, so it looks like little hydro towers or something like that, and I might edit them out just to kind of, because they're so small in the frame, they're not really distracting, but I think just cleaning them up would probably make a difference. But apart from that, I really do like this shot. This is nicely done.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I love the drama of this shot. The colors in that sky are really fantastic, and I love the fog and the layering created by this fog on this land. It's really beautiful. I also agree with you, Mark. I think coming in like this little power line tower and some of these other elements that kind of pop out of the background there, it would be worth hitting them with the healing brush or the clone stamp or something like that to pull them out. They're not terribly distracting. This one right here, this is the one that's getting me. For some reason, despite this thing being in the background and partially obscured by the fog, it's like, look at me, look at me, look at me.
Yeah.
And I just can't help but keep looking at it there. So, like, even if you just took that one out, I think that would really strengthen the image.
Yes.
I do think that the tree kind of right in the center is, for me, that's struggling a little bit.
I was actually going to just say that too, but then you beat me to it.
Yeah, I kind of wish it was off. The rule of thirds is a thing that is useful, but it's not. I want to be clear. the rule of thirds is rule is a misnomer because these are guidelines for us to use to try to compose the best image that we can. And the idea behind the rule of thirds is to create a composition that has more dynamic energy. For me, this tree in the middle doesn't have the dynamic energy that you could have if you pulled it off to the left or right a little bit. Could be on a third, could just be off a little bit one way or the other. But I think that would balance it better because it makes the image actually feel a little bit too static with that tree in the middle for me. Right.
Like Dean said, rules are meant to be broken.
Yep,
And
precisely.
absolutely.
Yeah,
I break them all the time.
Yep. And there have been many photos that we've had on here where I've talked about how the centered composition does work. It's just understanding the dynamic that it creates and whether or not it works. So outside of that, I would change the composition a hair. I would Photoshop out that tower. I wouldn't change anything else. Left its center, Flavio says, as there were other subjects. Okay.
No, fair enough.
Yeah, fair enough. For me, like, this is too tight, but this kind of gives you an idea of what I would maybe try to do because you have the tree way over here on the edge and that kind of borders it. Again, this is too tight, so this is losing a ton of the sky that we want. So not saying crop it like this, but what I like here is that you have this tree and then you have these other two trees over here, and that creates a connection and a flow and a balance that I quite enjoy. But again, it's just that's just a suggestion.
Yeah, and threes always seem to work well with photography as well too. Like you got the rule of thirds, but even like things in groups of three seem to work well too.
Yeah, they do. I mean, our brains seem to be conditioned to like the threes and sets of three of things. Our brains certainly like repetition. So even if it's a single repeating thing, like two instances of a thing, that still engages the brain in a way that's good. Main tree to the left of the image, and then crop out one of the two on the right, and you get image 2, Dean says. Yeah, 3 is more pleasing to our eyes. Ooh, good. Yeah, Harley says a portrait crop could work. I made one with in black and white with the tree to the left, Flavio says. I'd be interested to see that, Flavio. If you don't mind throwing that one up into the share room, I would like to take a peek at it just to see what it looks like.
Yeah, same here.
All right. Very nice work, though, Flavio. This is
definitely.
I love the drama of this. This is so, it's still a very beautiful image. That sky is so engaging. All right. This is Dean's. Holy smokes, Dean. This is awesome.
Dean's showing off.
Yeah, Dean's showing off. Okay. This is Maya, a mini schnauzer who was rescued from a puppy farm a few years ago. Shot in the small home studio. Is this right? Do I have the right details here?
It sounds like it.
Yep, that's right. Okay. Well, we have the other doggo. I just wanted to make sure I'm reading the right details. So, shot in the small home studio. Her owner wanted something for the family album. This was shot with the 24 to 85 millimeter f3.5 lens at 48 millimeters, ISO 200, 1/100th of a second, and f8. Dean used the Nikon D810 and used studio strobes in soft boxes. It doesn't remember the settings. This is awesome. I'll let you go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, basically same thing. This is awesome. Like there's not much to say about this. I guess the only thing, if I had to say something, I would say that the fact that the bit of the carpet there on the bottom left corner is cut off, but that's still like minor. It's I think 99.9% of the people wouldn't give a crap about it, and to be honest, I don't give a crap about it either. But just something, just to point out that if you had backed up just a hair, you might have got it all in there. It may or may not have made a difference with the shot, but it's an absolutely stunning shot that's sharp as anything, and the lighting is beautiful on it. It's well set up. It's great.
Yep. Yeah, I love the lighting on this, Dean. I think it's really beautiful. The dog looks like super majestic, which I love. I love. I'm not 100% sure about the umbrella. The umbrella does connect. Andrew just pointed this out. The umbrella does connect with the color here on the collar. but I'm not sure that the umbrella is necessary. Maybe it's significant to the owner, and if that's the case, like totally get that. If the owner wants it there, then so be it. From a purely just sort of compositional standpoint, I find that the umbrella is distracting and pulling my attention away from uh, Maya, the Schnauzer. So outside of that, like I have zero complaints about this image. Again, like you said, Mark, you could be fussy about the carpet down in the corner, but I'm so entranced by Maya's eyes and how majestic she looks sitting there on that couch that I really I'm not even bothered with that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I could say the same for the blanket thing too. I don't know if that really adds anything. I get the idea behind it, which is, to sort of set the scene and give it some context and make it feel more homey. But I wonder, again, I feel like they're pulling my attention away. Like if the blanket was on the couch and the dog was laying on the blanket, maybe. And again, if the umbrella was incorporated, but this is still just a beautiful shot.
Yeah.
Like I just can't stop looking at Maya. Super, super fantastic photo, Dean. I really like this.
Mm-hmm.
Because this is a mini Schnauzer, sometimes tricky to tell boys from girls. That's why I put in the pink umbrella. Ah, okay. I got it. That makes sense.
Fair enough.
Yeah. I get what you're going, where you're going with that, and that makes perfect sense. Yeah. I'm wondering if you could maybe achieve it with something else. But, that's being nitpicky.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Hello, Cyberdoc. Flavio just uploaded the black and white. Okay, I want to pop that up real quick just so we can, like a pink bow or something like that. I want to just take a quick look at that black and white from Flavio. Oh, yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that compositionally speaking. I think this in color would look really amazing. I love the way the two trees balance out there.
Yeah,
That's really nice. That's really nice.
Definitely.
All right. Let me find out where we were. Dean, thank you very much for sharing the photo of Maya and everybody else as well. As always, I want to take a moment here to say thank you for joining us, for putting up with the total disaster this show was earlier, and hanging out
on track.
Yeah, and letting us share our opinions. So that's your photo, Mark. I was going to show one of my photos, but we're so far in the weeds now that I'm just going to skip mine. Unless you guys want me to talk about my photos. If you do, let me know in the chat. I'll go back to them. But let's take a look at Sandy's photo. Let me find Sandy's info. So Sandy's practicing for the black and white challenge with a reflection. Says, probably won't use this one, but something close to this.
Nice.
Okay. Go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, it's I like it. Oh, well, did she say what the settings are?
Nope, no settings info.
No settings. Okay. But I like it. Normally with something like this, I'd say I prefer eye contact, but you're sort of getting eye contact from the reflection. So I think it actually works in this case. It's myself. This is just my opinion and my preference. I like black and white that's a little bit more crunchy, a little bit more contrasty. To me, it feels a little flat. But again, that's just the way I like my black and whites. It doesn't necessarily mean that this is wrong and that I'm right, because I'm wrong more times than I'd like to admit. Just ask my wife. And it does look like it was shot at a higher ISO. But it's hard to tell without knowing what the settings were, because it almost feels film like. I think is maybe what it is, because you typically with some film you don't really get that crunchy feel to it, and then I think the grain / noise that I'm kind of feeling, and it also kind of adds to the film kind of look to it.
Yeah, I agree with you on the processing of the black and white. I think it needs a little bit more contrast. It doesn't have to be like super crunchy. Certainly black and whites can really work as crunchy, but I definitely think adding some contrast here would add a lot to this photo, because it does feel flat. And the other benefit that you're going to get from the contrast is it's actually going to bring that reflection out a little bit stronger. The flatness, the lack of contrast here makes the reflection feel less prominent in the shot and a little bit harder to connect to.
Yeah, Sandy says she always goes for the retro look, so that
Yeah,
would make sense then.
yeah, and the retro look can work absolutely as black and white, and the flatter look can work as well. So if that's what you want, then go for that. That's fine.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. For a reflection though, I think you're going to benefit from contrast because it's going to help bring it out. Unless you get a stronger reflection, and stronger reflective surface, more mirror-like surface, so that the reflection is more prominent. I like where you're going with it. I'm not exactly sure how you lit it. If you use flash, it looks like on-camera flash to me. And I'd prefer to see something coming from the side, something a little bit softer, I think would be more suited, because this feels like a softer style shot, with her contemplative, being contemplative, kind of looking in, into the window, and then the reflection looking back at her. But I feel like the lighting's a bit too harsh for it.
Yeah, she says it was on camera flash.
Okay, yeah, I definitely recommend getting it off camera and softening that light up a bit, if you're going to keep going in this direction with it.
Yeah.
And then, go ahead.
Were you done?
I was just going to say one more thing, which is, I wonder if portrait would serve it a little bit better, because then it would make it feel a little bit more intimate with her and her reflection. I'm not sure, because that open space on the left might be the breathing room that the shot needs. But I'd try shooting it portrait as well as horizontal to see which one works better for you, Sandy.
Yeah, and what I was going to say is just a tip when you're shooting a reflection in a window like this, is something that will help too. Is like you're sort of almost shooting into the window more or less. But if you like, we assume that my webcam is my camera. If you shoot it on more of an angle, like shooting down the edge of the glass and having her look into it like that, you'll see the reflection a lot stronger versus having it more dead on
Mm-hmm.
to the camera, and will really liven it up. Shooting at a more of an intense angle, you definitely should see more of a reflection.
Right. Sandy says, I think I'm going to use a mirror with the next try. Definitely do that. You'll get a really powerful reflection from that, obviously. And first time doing reflections, harder than it seems. It really is, isn't it? Reflections are tricky beasts,
Yep.
especially when you add flash, because obviously you don't want the flash reflecting off of the whatever the reflective surface is and back into the camera. So you have to consider all of those different angles, which is difficult. But this is a really great start, Sandy, and I look forward to seeing how you develop it for next week.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Okay, this here is George's photo, and George shot this at f2.8, 1/100th, 50 millimeters, in ISO 4000. This was shot with the Sigma 17 to 50 millimeter f2.8, and it was at his grandson's christening at the beginning of the service. Was looking to take supporting shot to tie the story of the event together. All right, go ahead, Mark.
Perfect. It's a simple shot, but for tying a story together, it's an excellent shot. It's quite often you when you're doing stuff like this, like if you have an event like this, a lot of people forget to do the details, and the details can make a huge difference, because it can, especially if you're planning on like making a photo book or something like that. Or even a slideshow, or whatever the case is, having those detail shots in there can make a huge difference. And I think in this case, I think you've nailed it. The focus, from what I can tell, because it's a lower resolution picture, but the focus looks like it's bang on. You've got the people in the background to sort of put everything into context. You got all the paperwork sitting there. I think the only thing I would suggest, it would be maybe if you got a little bit of a higher angle, or just maybe changed where your position a little bit, because just at the very bottom of the frame here, you've got, it's hard to tell what it is, but it's something wooden that's kind of interfering and cutting into the base of the main subject here, and that part is a little bit distracting. But if it wasn't for that, I would say you definitely nailed it. But as it is, it's still a great shot. You've captured what you want to capture. It's just a shame that little object was there in the front.
Mm-hmm.
And
That
one other thing too is I noticed that also in the background there's a bright red spot there. You could probably quickly edit that out because it is a little bit distracting as well too.
Yeah, those are two things that I noticed. The wooden bit down in the lower left of the frame, and the red dot. And the red dot is primed for a quick hit with the clone or whatever brush. The wooden bit down in the corner is a little bit more difficult because I like how much of the basin, the baptismal basin, whatever that. I'm not a religious guy, so this stuff
Me
is.
neither.
But I'm going to call it a basin. The basin, and the wording on the basin, I think you were trying to capture that, and unfortunately, where that thing is, it intrudes a little bit. It doesn't ruin the shot by any stretch of the imagination, but it would be nice if it was gone. Harley mentioned, I think the candle either in the shot or out would be better. I rather like the way the candle is sort of cut in half. I think it provides a really nice edge to the frame here. And that bit of the holder, the wooden bit that points out this way, helps move you through the shot, especially because it kind of points right into all of the people in the background. I really like, it's called a font. Okay, it's called a font. He had to Google it himself, he says. So the font. So yeah, the wooden bit in front of the font, it would be nice if it was gone. But when you're working in a situation like this where you can't move things necessarily, and changing the composition to remove that bit might have ruined the idea that you were going for. I totally get that. And I like the font and the way you have it in the frame, and the way here's a really nice example of where centering the thing works. I like the font centered, and then that picture in the font, because there's a bit of an energy to all of that, right? The font and the picture create a bit of a triangle shape that throws you upwards and pushes you up into the people and into the story of the background, which is all of the people in the church. And if you understand the context of a church and all of this, then you get that this is a baptism. And all of that gives it that dynamic energy that that I was looking for with the tree on Flavio's shot. The paperwork and stuff there helps add to the context, so I think it's really nice as well. And I think that your use here of Shallow Depth of Field, George, is really excellent, because you put the focus on the font and let the rest of the background fall out far enough that it really creates a nice contrast, but it doesn't destroy the background by being so shallow that you don't know what's happening back there. So you tell the story you were trying to tell, and I think that's a beautiful thing. So I think you did a very nice job here with it, George.
Yeah.
Yeah, he says it was a tough space. Benches were tight together, so it was hard to move around. Totally understand that. That happens. And then you make the best of it, which I think you did excellently.
Mm-hmm.
Very nice work. Here's the cute pupper. Here's another cute pupper. This is Sonia's. And let me find Sonia's information here. You're welcome, George. Okay, just got to find... Okay. I'm not seeing your information on this shot, Sonia. Could you go ahead and just share your settings or your background or whatever you'd like in the chat? And while we're waiting for that, we will talk about the photo. Mark, go ahead.
Yeah, it's a cute photo. It's a cute dog.
Cute pupper.
Yep. I would normally comment about the ears being chopped off, but in this case, I actually don't mind it, just because the face is so intense, and the way he's looking at you, and his eyes are in focus. It's obviously it's a shot with a fairly small, large aperture. I was going to say aperture because the nose is out of focus, but the eyes are in focus. So you know, either this dog's nose is about that long, or a shot wide open or close to wide open. So
Yep.
it works well because the the background is basically just a blurry mess, so there's nothing there distracting really. Um, like I said, it's good composition. The eyes are there, and that's really the important thing. It's I guess very similar to the little girl we were looking at earlier, where the eyes were just slightly out of focus. Having them in focus like this just really draws your attention in, and it's bang, it's there. So that I really like this. It's well done.
Yeah, I agree. This is a really fantastic photo. Super cute, super intimate. I love the little bit of tongue. That's just sticking out of the dog's mouth. That's really adorable. Um, Focus is bang on the eyes, which is really important, obviously. Now, if it's not like with Diana's daughter, when it's still a really compelling photo, it's not as important because there's still a ton of emotion and connection there. But when it's bang on, it just makes things even stronger, which is
Yeah,
really
yeah, exactly.
fantastic. Yeah, I like the shallow depth of field that you captured here. That helps set the pupper off really, really nicely, which is again really excellent. Dean said maybe bring down the highlights, which you could do a little bit. There's certainly enough detail and texture in the highlights as far as the dog's fur goes. This stuff here in the background, if you bring that down a little bit, it may be a tiny bit less distracting. But for me, I don't find it distracting to the point that it pulls my attention away from the dog because the gaze is so engaging, and the triangular shape of the dog's head points downward, but the eyes pull us up, and then the way the ears are pointing up and out, like I just roam around there, like I keep looking into the ears because there's so much detail there, and then like the line of fur on the dog's face brings me back down, and the eyes catch me, so I get super lost in there, and I find this to be a really beautiful photo.
Mm-hmm. No, Sonia posted the details. She
Mm-hmm.
says, shot in a small home studio in my house, Stella Fox Terrier, shot raw on T7i manual, uh, ISO 100, 1/160th of a second, and a new ear flash and a softbox.
Yeah, this is beautifully done, Sonia. It really is. Very good job. Um, Excellent work.
I actually thought it was done outside. Now that maybe the white background was some snow or something like that. So
Mm. Yeah, Dean, I agree. Dean says I was thinking the bringing the highlights down would help with separation a little bit, and I think you're accurate. I think it would. Um, and that's nitpicking. Another thing I want to add is I'm not sure exactly how you did the processing, Sonia, but it has a bit of a vintage feel to it, and it certainly has a bit of color grading. I'm not sure if you color graded it or if you just used like a preset or a filter, but whatever you used, I like the feel it's giving the photo. It's enhancing the earthy tones of the dog across the entire shot, and I think that works in your favor. It's really very nicely done.
yeah, apparently shot at f8. I would have figured.
F8.
I figured it would be like f4 or something like that, with the way the nose was just dipping out of focus there.
I'm guessing a pretty long lens and
Yeah,
or quite close to the dog in order to get that drop off on the depth of
yeah,
field.
yeah,
Very nicely done.
yeah,
Very nicely
definitely.
done. Yeah, George says I thought it was an outside shot. I did too, honestly, until you said it was in the studio. So it shows that the execution is very nice. All right, this is Sanjay's photo. Let me find Sanjay's information here. I shot this with a Canon 5D Mark III, 70 to 200 millimeter f2.8. This is at 1/125th f8 ISO 400, 70 millimeter focal length, and then used a Profoto B1X 500 shot in Sanjay's home studio.
No, I think it's well done. The one thing I do notice is sort of the line that goes, I guess, from the floor to the wall. Just it looks a little bit odd under the stool there. I'm not sure whether something was edited or if it was just wrinkles in the floor or
I
what have
think
you.
it's I think it's just wrinkles in the fabric or whatever it is that's on the floor wasn't
Right, right.
smoothed out, and as the light's falling off, the wrinkles are showing up.
Yeah, it could be, but it's a nice shot. I do think that maybe the skin's been smoothed out a little bit too much, because I'm looking at her leg that's closest to us, and it looks a little maybe it isn't, but to me it just looks a little bit over smooth, I guess, for lack of a better term. But it's definitely a pretty model to work with, and I do like how you got the background nice and white, so she really pops off of it. Um, it bothers me a little bit, the hair in front of going down her face there, but it's nothing major. But for I think for a nice little home studio setup and a shot like this, I think it's a very well executed shot.
Yeah, I'm looking at it. I think what you're seeing as far as the smoothing goes is just the compression of the internet because I'm looking at
Oh,
it.
okay.
I'm looking at it full size on my monitor here, and there's. You may have done some smoothing, but there's texture. She has pores.
Oh, okay, okay.
So if it was smooth, I don't think it was done to excess.
Right, right.
I agree that the background on the floor is a bit distracting. The way it's kind of wrinkly and then smooths out into the seamless. If you want to go for that seamless, definitely smooth out your foreground as well as your background. And with a cloth backdrop, it can sometimes get tricky because as you're working a shoot and the model is posing and moving, things naturally start to bunch up. What I found super effective in the past, and I even do this with my vinyls, is once I get the backdrop laid out and everything's flat, I tape it down. I put some gaff tape down on the floor on the edges and actually pull it taut across the floor so that minimizes the chances that it's going to get pulled and bunched and create these wrinkles and things like that, because you don't notice them so much when you're shooting, but then when you come back and you're looking at the photo, you see them. And a lot of times what happens is, this didn't happen here, so this part is fine, but a lot of times what can happen is you'll have like a pose where, you know, a hand or a foot or a shoe or something is actually partially obscured by a wrinkle in that ground fabric bunching up. And again, I'm not saying that's happening here because it didn't, but that's what can happen if you're not managing that. So the lighting on this is really beautiful.
So Sanjay is saying that they didn't use strobe.
It's still really beautiful light.
Yeah.
However it was lit, I think it's really nice. Dean says the highlights look a little hot, and I agree with that. Not a ton, like just the tiniest
Just
bit.
the hair.
Yeah, just like just a tiny bit. And I think pulling those highlights back just a hair is also going to bring in a little bit more of the texture that you were looking for in her skin mark. The other thing that for me isn't working is the hair over the eye. That can work, but I think for this one, it just looks like I want to pull it out of the way, and when I want
Right.
to pull the hair out of the way, that's when it bothers me. So I would prefer to see the hair pulled off to the side, and not covering the eye, because it just feels like it fell there and shouldn't be there. All of this is nitpicky stuff. As usual, we're sharing this because we want to try to help you guys improve.
Yeah.
And this goes across the board for all the stuff we talk about. Outside of those things, like, I love the overall execution of this shot, Sanjay. The lighting is really beautiful. That's one of my favorite things about this. And except for the foreground and the wrinkling in the fabric, like, you've got a beautiful seamless look on this shot, and it's really nicely done.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Sonia came back and said that it was a photo background on the pup, and she was close to the dog. Yes.
No, okay, okay.
Yep. Okay. Dean says if the hair was solid over the eye, it would work, but because it's bits of hair, it looks off. I agree with that, because then you would be kind of creating a bit of mystery by hiding the one eye and just showing the other. But having the sort of bits and bobs of it just makes it feel like you want to pull the hair out of the way. All right. This, I believe, is Cochise Hart's photo. I saw, Cochise, that you had popped your settings in and then pulled them back out. So if you want to pop them back in, that would be awesome. There you are. You were just waiting with the paste. Yeah, it's like, okay, I gotta hit that paste right away. Vicky makes a good point, but is this how she wears her hair? If that is, we'll just go back to that for a second. If that is how she wears her hair, if you were trying to capture that, all of that is legitimate. And I wouldn't, and if that was the case, then I would say leave it, and it works. All of these things are always subject to caveats, and this is why we ask for background on the photos, because the more information you give us about your photo, the more we can give you an opinion that works around the thing you were trying to accomplish with the photo. That's why we ask for this information. The settings are useful, but what is far more important, honestly, when you're sharing these photos, and maybe we've never really clarified this, so that's why I'm taking the time to say this. What's far more important is all of that other context, because that will help us give you the feedback that will hopefully help you execute these things even better. And so that's why I really want you guys to tell us more about the photo if you can, than just to say, you know, I took this picture and these were the settings.
Yeah.
That's fine if that's all you have, but the more you give us, the better it is.
Yeah, because if the hair was like that intentionally, then us saying something about it is it's still something valid to say, but then we can say it with knowing that it was done intentionally, but just sort of just some extra feedback, I guess you could say.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Night, Tim.
Good night, Tim. Tim's got to head out. Cochise's photo said, forgot to add the info. Not a big deal. This is an ad campaign for White Tiger CBD Instagram page, shot with a Canon 6D 35mm f2.0 prime lens, 1/100th f4 1/125th of a second. Before you start, Mark, I just gotta say, this is not a criticism of the photo at all, but the minute I saw White Tiger, I immediately thought of Charlie Sheen's Tiger Blood thing that happened however many years ago that was, when he went off the deep end. And it made me chuckle a little bit. All right, go ahead, Mark.
Okay. I'm not exactly sure what White Tiger is, but...
CBD oil. Cannabis oil?
That tells me nothing. Okay. Cannabis oil, there you go. Okay.
Yeah.
So for a product shot, I like what you've done here. You've made it bang in your face in the foreground, so you basically, you know, this is what it is, and then you do have the guy in the background, but he's out of focus enough that he's not the main subject, but you know that there's still something tying everything together. Myself, this is a tough one, because with this being the main subject, that's cool. But unfortunately for me, it really stands out that the horizon is cockeyed, even though it's not really relevant. But I just know that it's there, and it keeps throwing me off. But then with this, you couldn't straighten it, because then the subject would be almost on its side. So
Right.
But that's just it's irrelevant. But I honestly do keep going back and looking at that background. The other thing I noticed too is, I'm not sure, maybe it's the compression coming through the internet again, but to me, this being your main subject, to me, it doesn't look like it's super sharp. Like not especially if it's supposed to be a product shot. I would expect it to look sharper than it does. Maybe it's just the way the lighting's sitting on it. I'm not sure.
The focus is off the hair. It looks like focus landed on the palm of the hand, because when I'm looking at the text on the jar, it is a bit out. Not a lot, but it is a bit out. Did you have more?
No, that was it.
Oh, okay.
The horizon's still distracting me.
Right.
Sorry.
So I gotta say, like, I didn't notice the horizon until you said it, and as soon as you said it, I can't unsee it, because I was looking at the jar.
You're welcome.
Right. Fortunately, if you wanted to correct that, Cochise Heart, you could fairly easily remove that bit of whatever is going on in the background that's creating the horizon there. Being shallower depth of field, you'll have to do a little bit of blending between the transition of the arm back into that background, but knocking that out would be easy enough to do. As Dean mentioned and as Mark mentioned, the focus is just a hair off. It looks like I said, it landed on the palm of the hand rather than on the jar itself. And I'm not sure, just like I was talking about with Diana's photo, if you were choosing your focus point or not, but I definitely recommend that when you're focusing on your subject, that you're choosing a single focus point when appropriate, which is basically always appropriate for a non-moving subject, because then you can tell the camera precisely where you want it to focus and ensure that it lands where you want it to be. That's not always going to guarantee it, because cameras are machines and machines screw up, but that's gonna raise the likelihood that you have the subject you want in focus.
Yeah, and also with something like that too is if you're shooting, I can't remember if you said you were shooting wide open or not, but if you are shooting wide open with a super duper shallow depth of field, you might get the focus and you might move a little bit because you're shooting at a weird angle, or even your subject, because he's holding this, even if he moves a little bit, then bang, your focus could be off after you
Yeah.
lock the focus in. So
Yep. That's a really excellent point. That's why, banging off a few shots and refocusing periodically is always a good thing to do. And then, taking a moment after you sort of take one of those pauses to review to make sure that you've got your focus in there. Vicky says, I'm fine with the awkward horizon. I think a cockeyed photo can draw more viewers' attention to the ad because it is out of the ordinary. That's a fair point, and I can absolutely see that working, especially when you're trying to get people to stop in an Instagram feed. That's a tactic you can use in advertising, and that can absolutely work in your favor. I'm a tiny bit torn on the super orange feel to it. Because this is destined for Instagram, whether it's intentional or not, I think that really rich warmth and orange you have will work, because Instagram is the land of orange and teal color graded photos. And this will fit right in there. And that's why I want to bring it up, just to say, this is a thing that you should definitely be considering. We're talking about the colors. The colors are important, even though, as I mentioned earlier, I sort of say faff off to color, 100% color accuracy in my work, because it's too much of a pain in the butt. But that doesn't mean you should totally ignore your colors. So, Cochise, I'm not sure what your color intent was. But I just want to put that out there. Again, for Instagram, I think it's the right thing to do, because it is the land of orange and teal.
Yeah, so, and I think also with Instagram, they really like poppy colors to really draw your attention.
Yes, exactly. So all of that being said, I want to bring it back home and say I like this shot. We talked about the focus. I can't unsee the horizon, and I did say you could correct it, but the more I sit back and just look at the photo, the more I don't really care about the horizon, because I really am looking at the product, which is what you want us to be looking at. So I think you've done that effectively. Even with the focus being off a hair, I am looking at that product, and
it's bang in your face like it should be.
Exactly. So that is working, and that is effective. I like that, it is really intense, in your face pose. I like the way the hand is. I like the way it's covering his face. I like the shallower depth of field that throws him out enough that we are focused on the jar. And I think the sky as the background is really excellent, because it provides zero distraction for what you want us to see, which is that jar. So all in all, I think it's a very effective product shot.
But I do have to ask though: is he wearing a hat on backwards, or does he have some sort of a weird, awkward bald spot?
I assumed it was a hat, but that's a really good question.
So too.
Cochise Hart said the sun was driving me crazy. It was an hour before sunset.
That's why it's so orange then.
Yeah. That's another question. Dean says, wouldn't you need to give a square crop for Instagram so left-hand horizon could be cropped out? It doesn't have to be square. You could also put it up in the 4x5 format. But this is something that's worth noting. If you are taking photos for Instagram, ideally you want to shoot a 4x5 portrait, because that's going to fill the screen on the device the most. Right? Notice that when you look at Instagram. This is not going to be perfect, but let me just pull up Instagram on my phone here so you can see what I'm talking about. Let me just find a horizontal image. Okay, right, so here's a horizontal image on Instagram. It's a really beautiful photo too. It's by Jeff Scott, right? So there's a horizontal shot. Look at how little of the screen it is taking up. And then let me just pop up to a 4x5. This is my friend OmniZion, awesome cosplayer. Look at how much of the screen that takes up. Right? So one of the things you want to consider when you're shooting photos specifically for Instagram, especially if it's a product shot, is that format and shooting it in that 4x5 portrait to fill that frame and get the eye on the product that you want them to see.
Good point.
All right. Pinwheel. We got a pinwheel. Just rub it in your scalp a few times every day, and then presto, good for hair renewal, Manisla says. That's awesome.
I'm sorry I said something now.
Alrighty.
Before?
I'm sorry?
Didn't we see this pinwheel picture there like a month or two ago?
I don't think so. I don't recall seeing this one. I think we saw a pinwheel shot, but not this pinwheel shot. This, I believe, is new. This is Brian's. Don't rub it on your back, Coach Easthart says. Unless you want to look like a gorilla.
Yeah.
So what you're saying is I shouldn't go shirtless in my videos, right? Okay, this is Brian Leonard's photo. Brian Leonard. I cannot speak tonight. This is Brian Leonard's photo. Brian says, I was traveling last week and didn't get to submit this for toy photography. Found this next to a country road. 1/80th of a second, f10, ISO 100, 58 millimeters. I had to wait for the breeze in order to get the motion blur. A+ for patience. Go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, definitely. No, and that's a perfectly good point about how we said we had to wait for the pinwheel to move to get the motion blur. So you know, in a case like that, because he mentioned it was done intentionally that way. But it's definitely a nice capture with the pinwheel, and good job on capturing the motion blur. You picked a good shutter speed. If it had been longer, it could have just been a colorful, muddy mess. But it's short enough that you can actually still see it's a pinwheel. Mm-hmm. So and shows the motion, so that's great. One thing maybe you could have done, maybe you couldn't have done, is if you had moved maybe to your left, so the pinwheel was against the white sky instead of blended in with the tree, it might have made it pop a bit more and stand out more because there's all white behind it. But again, without knowing if you could or could not, that's hard to say. But something that I say many times during our photo blabs is sometimes the first shot's not the shot that you want, but moving around trying different shots just to see what you can get is always good to do, because it's digital. It's you've got the shots there to take, and maybe this was the best one out of if you've taken multiple ones, maybe this was the best one. But it's food for thought, anyways. But otherwise, it's a simple shot, but you've got good use of the rule of thirds. You get the post and the pinwheel on the third here, and then the main head of the pinwheel is in the top third. So the composition is good there, and it's just, for a basic pinwheel shot, it's well executed.
Yeah, it is. Hey, Jeff's here in the chat. Awesome. That was Jeff's photo on Instagram.
Oh, that's funny.
So Brian says, I wanted the angle of the pinwheel instead of flat on. I like that you wanted the angle there. I'm not so sure that it would provide a different sort of contrast if it was against the sky, but I think the sky would end up being too bright because it's mostly blown out. Right. For the background. So I rather like that it is framed against the greenery. Also, the other thing that works for me with the greenery is that it really evokes the feeling of summer, because not only do you have the red, white, and blue pinwheel, which makes me immediately think of like 4th of July and summer and all of that stuff, but then you have the tree and all of its sort of, full bloomed glory, and all of that just says to me like summer. There's a bit of a lake there in the background or some kind of water. Like, this takes me to my summer place. So I think it's really well done. And the pinwheel capture, that motion and energy that you capture there, I think is super, super excellent as well. It looks like you color graded this and crushed the blacks a hair, which I like. I think it works. Again, it gives it a bit of a vintage feel and adds a
Yep.
bit of nostalgia to the image. So I think that works. And I like that the colors are a bit muted. I like that this isn't like pop in your face vibrant. It could work that way, but I think having them toned down a little bit adds a subtle calming feel, and that sort of summer relaxation rather than the kind of like frantic energy you might associate with like 4th of July and the fireworks and explosions and all of this other stuff. A little of a warming filter, Brian says. Yeah, and I think that's excellent.
Yeah.
The other detail I like this is super duper minor, but I don't know. This just amuses the heck out of me. I love that you can see the screw, and this thing is like literally just drilled into this post here. You know, that just amuses the heck out of me for some reason. Nicely done, Brian. Very nicely done. All right, this is Vicky's photo, and this is intense. So let me get Vicky's details here.
Ooh.
Yeah. So this was a Canon 70D with the Canon MPE 65 at f10. MPE 65, I think that's like a super duper macro lens. Yeah, it's a 65 millimeter macro lens. Vicky's super into macro and bugs, which is amazing. She takes some really amazing photos with those lenses. Anyway, this moth was hanging on a piece of grass after I mowed the lawn. She's thinking I may have hurt him because he stayed there for at least an hour, and I moved the blade around to work on his pose. That's awesome.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, it's a great shot. I love the detail you've captured here. It's like the doing macro is tough to do, and I imagine you probably took a few shots to get just the focus right where you wanted it, because you're with macro, your depth of field is just so shallow. I think that the colors look natural too, so good processing on that, and I don't think there's anything I'd change on this. It's a different perspective seeing the bug from underneath, because normally you'd see it either like face on or from the top or something like that. So I like how you captured this side of the bug, so of the moth. So well done.
Yeah, this is really, really cool. Vicky also added that she used her twin lights with it. And this lens is a super macro 1x to 5x lens. This is like a super tricky lens to work with. I remember, this was years ago now, she brought it to, I used to have like a little camera club that we had here in town where we'd all just get together and hang out and shoot. And she brought it one night when we were messing around with macro. And that lens is like super tricky. So to be able to get a shot like this is just absolutely incredible. My favorite detail of this shot is the proboscis. I'm probably saying it wrong, but the little his nose that's all curled up there. The detail you've got here, Vicky, is absolutely incredible. I love your framing on this. The way everything angles in here, the very dark background sets off the details really beautifully, and adds a ton of mystery to this shot. This is just excellently done, very beautifully executed. I love this shot. Like, I wouldn't change a thing about it. I think you did a bang up job here, Vicky.
Yep.
That's her favorite part of the shot too. That's awesome. Sandy says she would love have a blast in my backyard. We have some crazy big nasty bugs around here, and she says it's terrifying. I had to bring in all my patio furniture. They were huge. They're gonna attack soon, Sandy. Be careful out there. Yeah, Minnesota says unusual perspective. Coach Easthart says sweet photo. It's awesome, awesome, awesome shot. All right, let's see whose this is. This just says Natural History Museum. Oh, it's Alex's. Perfect. Thank you, Alex. So this is the Natural History Museum in London, shot with the Sony a7R3 and the Zeiss 25mm f2. Shot taken at 1/8000th of a second. F2, ISO 400. I was shooting 400 ISO, forgot to change to 100.
Okay.
Okay. I mean,
That was what my comment was going to be, but now we know.
right, right. I don't think ISO 400 makes any difference here.
No, I don't think so
Um,
either.
yeah, go ahead,
It,
Mark.
just the shutter speed of 8,000 kind of threw me off, and then when you said
Right.
the 400, then that made sense.
Mm-hmm.
So this is the kind of black and white I like. Nice crunchy contrast, nice dark blacks, and it's such a dramatic mood.
Yep.
So kudos on that. It's an interesting perspective. Definitely, I like you get like I like the nice dramatic sky and the view. I know I've said this before with other photos similar to this, where I'd like to see the whole building, and again, same sort of thing. I would like to see the whole building, but that's just my preference. But I definitely see what you're going for here, and I definitely think it works well.
Yeah,
And
this is a really cool shot. I love the perspective on this. I don't mind that you don't see the whole building because I am like sucked into this photo. There's exactly. Andrew says there's so much depth and tones, good blacks, good whites.
Mhm.
Coach Easthart says incredible detail, and I absolutely agree. Like I love the individual the tonality you see of all these different individual bricks. I love the architectural, the descending arches into that doorway is like a sinkhole, like a black hole that's trying to pull me in. But then the verticality of the building and the perspective distortion of the pillars coming together, and then that flagpole in the middle, all of that sucks me up, and I get lost in all these rich, wonderfully, toned details. So I love this shot. Like,
Yeah, I think the only thing that I would change or edit is
mm-hmm,
on the right hand side. There's this one real bright white cloud. I would do a quick little edit and get rid of that.
mm-hmm.
Just because it just kind of as I'm looking around, I keep getting distracted. It's like, oh, what's that bright thing over there? It's like, oh, squirrel. And then,
Right.
but I think other than that minor little thing, it's great.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you could take that cloud out. I didn't notice it until you pointed it out, but now that I see it, it's
You
it's
can't
again, it's
undo
like
it.
yeah, it's one of those things you can't unsee.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, and this is not a criticism of the perspective you chose on this photo, Alex. I just want to point out that if you were shooting a shot like this, but you didn't want that perspective distortion, you wanted to end up with the building looking correct in terms of like verticals being vertical and things like that. What you can do with in a situation like this is you can actually shoot the shot wider, intentionally extra wide. And what that gives you room to do is perspective correction using tools like Lightroom's geometry tools or the perspective distortion and skew tools in like Photoshop or other programs like that, where you can take these things and pull them out and rearrange the pixels and correct it. And again, I'm not saying that you should have done that with this shot, Alex, because I really love the perspective of this because it makes the building feel so imposing and august, and I think that's part of what you're trying to communicate. But if you wanted to do that for anybody trying to shoot architecture, that's an option that you could do.
Right.
Excuse me.
But I think with this one, the fact that you're looking up, you need that perspective like
Yep,
that.
absolutely agree. All right, very very nice work, Alex. Okay, this is cute. I'm not seeing any info on it though. All right, so if this is your photo, please claim it in the chat. Let us know what your settings were and give us some background behind the photo, and we'll come back and talk about it. If you're not here or don't claim it, then we won't come back to it. This one here, let me see if there's any info on this one. I thought I saw somebody post about this shot right here, the fire.
That was a little while ago.
But I'm not seeing that either. I think it was like directly in the chat. All right, same thing with this. If you could repost your information on this so that we have that context, that would be fantastic. So again, I'll move on to the next shot. It was close to the start of the stream's chat. Okay, I'll zoom back there, and we'll come back to that. Mark, why don't you talk about this shot? So this is from, Andrew. Okay, perfect. All right, so Andrew, go ahead, please share your info. Excellent, thank you very much.
No, which one? The marshmallow one? Are we on? Or are we
We're
on?
on the marshmallows. Yes, we're on the marshmallows.
Okay.
All right, so this is Andrew's shot, and Andrew says this was shot with the Nikon D3400, 1/50th of a second, f5.6, and ISO 3200. Shot in RAW and in manual mode with the 18 to 55 millimeter kit lens at 52 mil. It was at night at about 9 p.m. There was a group of kids given sticks and marshmallows during an overnight school outing trip. And what follows when you do that? Flaming marshmallow napalm. All right, Mark, go ahead.
Okay, yeah, this is a great shot just because of the moment captured. It's like you know, you don't necessarily know that it's kids, but you know it's like a camping trip or some sort of thing, and it's just kind of what you do when you're camping. I think your settings that you selected are good. I love the glow of the wood and the oranges of the fire and the oranges of the marshmallows on fire as well too. It's it, it it's it's sort of a snapshotty photo, but in a case like this, it doesn't matter because you're capturing the moment. You're capturing this is what we did. This is our summer adventure fun. This is it, it's more of a I'm not sure the proper way to describe it. It's sort of a memory keeper, I guess you could say. That's like a family outing type photo. So I think it's excellent in that respect. The one marshmallow on the top right corner is kind of getting cut off there, but that's not a big deal. That's it is what it is. Again, it's kind of like with you said, it's kids, and with kids, things are always moving around, and you can never predict where things are going to be, and so you do what you can do with what you've got.
Yep. I quite like this shot. Campfires and fires in general are always, we're drawn to them kind of like, flies or moths or whatever, as far as photographing them goes. And I think this is a really nice example of capturing a fire in a way that's not boring, for lack of a better word. I've seen, and I've taken, when I was getting into all of this and still learning myself, hundreds, dozens, however many I've seen and taken a stupid number of really bad fire photos because you're just like, oh, the fire is so beautiful, I want to take a picture of it. You take a picture of it, and it's just fire. It's like, who cares, right? But this, Harley, you just nailed what I was about to say. This tells a story, and it's a really excellent story. Again, like my favorite part of this is that ball of flaming marshmallow napalm there, right? Like that's how my wife eats her marshmallows on the fire. She turns them into charcoal. And it's just crazy, but it has such a really great story because you have all of these different marshmallows being stuck into the fire. You have fire, but the fire isn't even really the subject. The subject is the marshmallows and the activity of roasting the marshmallows. And so all of that tells the perfect story. The marshmallows in that upper right, I would prefer if they were more towards the middle because that's so far removed from everything else. I get if you're just shooting candid snapshot sort of style stuff and you're not trying to direct them, that you get what you get. But it'd be worth saying in situations like this, hey, can you move your marshmallows over just a little bit? I want to take a picture, and just have them hold them there for another second or two until they turn into the perfect napalm.
Even bigger flaming.
Right, even bigger flame. And the other thing that I really like here is the little streaks of embers flying up out of the fire. Those add, just like the dirt from Amanda's, right? Amanda? I'm going to feel like a terrible person. See, I'm so bad with names. Amanda, hey, I did it. Amanda's truck kicking up the dirt. The flames throwing those embers and you capturing the streaking of those embers adds so much to this photo. It's such a small detail, but it's so perfect. So I really like the way you captured this, Andrew. I think you did a really nice job in capturing and telling the story, which is beautiful. Very, very nice. Okay, so Anne had this photo of her granddaughter shot on the Nikon D850 at 1/800th of a second and f4 with an ISO of 200. She said, not much composition, as I was just grateful she looked at me before climbing out.
Yeah. Well, then what more could you ask for, right?
Right, right.
But not taking the composition into account, it's the focus is bang on. It's exactly where you want it to be. It's definitely a cute subject. Like it's your granddaughter is like what is probably one of your biggest prized possessions in the world. So it's you got what you got, and it's a great capture. You've captured the mood. You've captured her playing in this little fort thing, and you can just tell that she's having a blast. Just a smile on her face, and she's just so happy to be there. And
Hmm.
it's a beautifully captured moment.
Yeah, her looking at there's this stupid gnat flying around. I want to kill it so bad. Um, all right, back to the photo. This is super adorable. I love her frizzy hair. I love her expression. She looks like she's playing and have a good time. This is another example of a really nice storytelling image. You're capturing the moment. You know, you've got that split second where she pokes her head out and she actually looks at you and you're ready and you get the shot and it's great. You know, after the fact, it's worth it to maybe do a little straightening and or cropping. The angle of the play thingamajig, whatever it is, kind of leaning this way, adds extra directionality that way that makes me feel like I'm being pushed out of the image. She's about to giggle. Yeah, it looks like that. Exactly, Andrew. So maybe straightening that a hair. So it doesn't have so much of that lean, and also like all of the green and whatever of the plaything over on the right, to me is really heavy, because it's so bright and distracting. It pulls me away from her. I feel like cropping close. Whoops, I hit the wrong thing there. Cropping closer in, like, this is too tight because then it looks like her head's just kind of floating there, which is super weird. But almost like cropping it maybe to a portrait orientation is it would work a little bit better because you clean up all of this excess unnecessary playground thing, dang it all, and then let her really shine in the shot. But she already shines, so you
Yeah.
know, working in that moment and getting that photo in the moment you're able to, you did a really nice job, Anne, and I applaud you for that because you were ready, you had the camera ready, you knew what you wanted to get, and you got it, and that's
Hmm.
very nicely done, very
Yeah.
nicely done. That toy is round, so it will lean. That's a good point. That's a good point. Okay, so this is Eddie's photo. So Eddie is an old friend. Used to be back when I had my group instead of on Facebook on Google Plus. Eddie was one of the moderators there, and I've always loved Eddie's work. And Eddie popped into the chat tonight and dropped this in. And says, didn't have time to sign up, but my photo is the one titled Mario Streak. Hope to be on by 11 p.m. See you then. 11 p.m. his time, which might actually be right about now. Not sure if he's on or not, but we don't have settings info. Go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, this is an interesting one. It's it's something I've always seen and I've always wanted to do, where you're shooting somebody who's like well toned and built like this guy, and then using the side light to really just emphasize the muscles and the sculpturing of the body. That's something that I haven't done, but I think would be interesting to do because
Yes.
it's just such a dramatic look, and so I just love the lighting setup. I do wish there was a little bit more light in his eyes, but when you're doing side lighting like that, it's I think that's just sort of nature of the beast when you're doing something like that. So that that's nothing you can do about that. I'm not sure I'm a big fan of these of the green circle and the I'm assuming that was something that he added after the fact, and
Yeah.
it, to me, I think it distracts from the subject. But if that's what he was going for and is what was intentional, then so be it. But to me, it's just a distraction from the main subject, which is this awesomely chiseled guy.
Yeah, I see what you're talking about with the background. I like it. So something like this comes down to a matter of taste, of course,
Yeah, absolutely.
which is something that we always try to make clear. So I find the green circle exactly what Vicky just said. It works as a frame, especially because that background is so dark. It helps set him off. And it also adds a bit more energy to the shot. I mean, he's already got a tremendous amount of energy in him. That pose, the flexing, the lighting on the muscles, the tension in his neck, his mouth open in that yell. All of that adds a tremendous amount of energy. And then that circular background adds a nice framing and another level of dynamic energy to it that I like. And as a set of stylized images like this, I think it works very effectively.
Yeah, like it definitely ties it together.
Right.
I'll give it that. But again, like I said, I think if it was me, I wouldn't have done it. But that's just again, like you said, it's
Yep.
preference.
Yep. I totally understand. Brian says, I like the green circle, but I think I would like to see all of it. I can see what you're saying there. I think I'm okay with it being sort of faded out the way Eddie did. All of these things kind of come down to what works for each individual in their own edit. Back to the principal subject of the photo. This guy is awesome. I think that lighting is really, really excellent as well because it chisels him out. The detail of, I don't know if it's actual sweat or if it's water misted onto him, but it is a very good detail to pay attention to and to have added. That is a key detail. I also wish there was a little bit more light in the eyes. They're very dark and heavy, and if that's the intent, that's fine. But I wish not like fully lit, just a little bit
Yeah,
more.
just a little bit more. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
just a little bit more to see some of the definition of his intensity in his face and the eyes squinting shut in the moment of this flex and everything else here. But that's it's a really cool shot. I really like it. I think it's really well done. And really, when you boil it down, the main thing I would like to see is just a little bit more light in those eyes.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, Dean says the same thing. I like the image, but like Mark says, a little more light in the face, mainly in the eyes. Yeah, I'd like to see. I would like to see the lighting, but it looks pretty. You've got a top-ish light because if you look at the forehead,
Yeah,
so we've got
might actually be three lights in this setup.
yeah, you've got light up here, and that's it. It might actually just be the one, honestly, because if you look at these highlights, the forehead's really telling, as is the nose. There's a little bit of light underneath, so it might have been bouncing some light up. But again, look at the arms. All of the highlights are on top, principally on top.
Fair
So
enough, yeah.
I think we've got. Whoops, I just banging into my microphone here. Yeah, Andrew just said the same thing. I think we've just got one principal light on top coming down, and then maybe a bounce up to like fill in the neck and some of that.
Right.
Because on his pecs you can see a little bit of underlighting as well. So that's this might be a clamshell.
Yeah. Either way, it's definitely very directional, and it's a good
Yes.
way to accent stuff like this.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, Dean says top light and a reflector. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking might have happened here. All right, I think that's our last shot. We do have one more that somebody put in there, but I don't have any info on it, and it was just uploaded, and I'm pretty wiped. So I think we're
Yeah.
going to call it at Mario here with Eddie's shot. So, oh, this was MJ's shot. All right, MJ, you're coming in on the clutch. This is the last photo. We'll do yours, though, MJ. Oh, come on. Stop doing that to me. Okay, let me close all this crap out here. Ah! There we go. Come back. Here we go. Okay, this is MJ's. Took this shot at Taipei, Taiwan. It was my first time to try street photography. I was inspired to try it because of the works of, I'm not going to say that correctly, Yaiza Bakani, and I don't know if I've done it right. All right, I'll let you start, Mark.
Yeah, well, it's hard to say because I don't really know the style that he's trying to replicate for one thing. But
Let's take a quick look at that photographer's work. So we have a kind of a reference point. So it's X Y Z A B A C A N I. Okay, so let's see some images here. These, I don't know if these are super representative of the work.
definitely likes the black and white,
Yes,
because probably 80% of them are black and white.
this Pulitzer Center. It's not a super good. She's a Fuji shooter, for whatever that's worth. Let's see if there's some sampling of her work here. Gallery, here we go. All right, so this is giving us kind of a point of reference. I know I'm going through these kind of quick. I'm just trying to get a feel here. Fair amount of color. Oh, that's pretty interesting. Okay. All right, so go ahead, Mark.
Okay. I myself, the way this is currently shot, it doesn't do anything for me. Not going to lie about that. I think what might have worked a lot better is if you had gotten in tighter into the circle, so there is less of whatever this thing is that's in the foreground, and basically used it just more as as a as a
Frame.
a bigger window, a bigger frame, so you can see more of the subject there. Because right now it's just basically it's cutting off most of the photo, and so really all you kind of see is this guy in the bus, and maybe that was the intention. I don't know, but to me it's just a whole lot of distraction, I guess you could say, because most of the photo is being obscured by this thing. But I think if like I said, if you had zoomed in and used it more as a window or a frame, it probably would have been a lot better. The processing, I don't mind. Like I know I'd mentioned before, especially with that church, how I liked a nice crunchy black and white. But this one, I actually don't mind with the processing that's done.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like I said, for me, the big thing is this big thing that's in the frame that's basically blocking more or less what I want to see in the frame.
Yeah, I think I'm with you on that. I like what you were trying to do here, MJ, and I think I zoomed in, if you might have noticed a bit ago, but I think zooming in too tight makes this thing that you were trying to use as a framing device too heavy. So I'm not sure that there's a. I mean, obviously, working something like this, there's definitely a way to make something like this work, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think if you got closer and shot with a wide lens, you could probably make it work.
Yeah, I think that might be better. Or having, because I get what you're trying to do, right? This particular
Yeah,
person
absolutely.
caught your attention. You wanted to sort of frame and highlight them in the shot, and I like where you're going, but this thing is so big and so heavy. And then you have the tail end of the bus, and there's a lot of stuff happening on the right side of the frame that ends up being distracting. And if you come in, like even to here, it's still too much. And this thing becomes so heavy that it pulls all of my attention away from them. So then you get to a point where you're almost shooting it like this. Then it feels like you're peeking through, a keyhole almost sort of scenario. So I think really drilling down to something like this maybe would have been the most effective way to do this. Yeah, Dean says, Minisla said this. Um, you know, uh, Focus on what's happening through the hole and forget the rest. Zoom in and use it as a frame. I think something like this would have worked out and been a little bit more successful because it really tightens up the focus of what you want us to see. And it makes us feel like we're having a bit of a glimpse into something that maybe we're not supposed to see. It almost feels like you're trying to create kind of a
Voyeur type look.
yes, exactly. Um, the other approach would have been to not have this in it at all and to not necessarily focus on the person on the bus, but rather the entirety of the bus in this scene. But that's an entirely different shot.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
definitely.
yeah. The processing, I'm okay with either way. You guys know, like, I appreciate black and white, but black and white has never been like my thing. So I can always go either way with it. And for this one, for me, I would like to see more contrast as well. Um, I think that would create more depth in the shot, which I think would help it a little bit. Um, but I think the biggest issue is, like we've been talking about, is the composition, and trying to use that as a framing device. Definitely needs a little bit of work and a different approach, MJ. But again, love that you're out here shooting this kind of stuff and that you're pushing yourself and you're trying this. So,
And something like this is definitely tricky to achieve, and you got to. It's not the kind of thing that anybody can just walk up to something like that and do it. It definitely requires a little bit more thinking outside of the box to pull something like that off.
right.
So, like Spyros said, practice, and then practice some more, and eventually it'll fall into place, and you'll be like, oh, well, this is easier than I thought.
Right, exactly. Yeah, it just takes time and effort, and
Yep.
that's all anything ever takes is working at it. Okay, on that note, I think we're gonna wrap this bad boy up. I'm wiped,
You ready for a nap?
crawling underneath the table, and yeah. All right, this was a really great show, though, guys. Thank you so much for joining us as usual, sharing your photos with us, allowing us to share our opinions on them, and offer our feedback to try to help all of us improve as photographers. It's an honor to be able to do that, and we always try to treat your work with respect because we appreciate that you're putting yourselves out there
Yeah,
when
and the
you
time and
share.
effort you put into trying to do what you do, and then and learning as you go.
Exactly. So thank you all very much for being part of this. We really, really appreciate it. Yeah, awesome nights, 2 a.m. here in the UK. Dean's off for crash. All right. So on that note, is there anything else you want to add here, Mark?
No, I think I'm good. Thanks.
All right. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. We appreciate it. Have a wonderful, wonderful evening. I'll be back on Wednesday morning for the business windup with Zara. So if you're into that, we will see you then on Facebook. Otherwise, make sure you have a great night. And make sure you get out there and take some damn photos. Bye.
Night, everyone.
Good night. I have the stop button ready. Jazz fingers. Woo.